I still can't cook, but I can help you realize that closure isn't something that people give you. It's something you have to decide for yourself. Today, we're talking about closure, or honestly, the idea of closure. I think a lot of us are walking around waiting for just one final conversation, one perfect explanation, one apology, one text, one moment that suddenly makes everything make sense. We try to convince ourselves, if I only knew what happened, I could finally move on. But the truth is, a lot of people never get closure. Some relationships end abruptly. Some friendships slowly disappear without any explanation. Some people just change overnight. Some situations never fully make sense no matter how many times you replay them in your head. And I think one of the hardest parts of adulthood is realizing that you don't always get clear endings. Sometimes there's no final conversation, no accountability, no satisfying explanation, no big cinematic moment where everything just clicks into place. Closure is mostly a myth, so we shouldn't become emotionally dependent on needing the answers. Because waiting for closure can actually keep you stuck rather than moving forward. Healing usually starts the moment you stop waiting for someone else to hand you peace. So let's get into it. This is your guide to letting go without needing the perfect ending first. Hey everybody, welcome back to Still Can't Cook. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars and subscribe on YouTube. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever replayed a situation in their head trying to figure out what happened. The people who reread old texts, analyze old conversations, look for the hidden meanings, create fake monologues in the shower, explaining their side of the story. When things end painfully and unexpectedly, our brains want resolution. We want answers and we want certainty. But unfortunately, life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes people leave without explanations. Sometimes they lie. Sometimes they avoid difficult conversations entirely. And sometimes the version of closure that you're hoping for simply never comes. So today we're talking about why humans crave closure so badly, why unresolved endings can feel obsessive, how people get themselves emotionally stuck waiting for answers, and what it actually means to move on. And hopefully somewhere throughout this episode, I'm going to figure this out for myself. So stay with me. Let's see if it works for me and you. Closure, imagine that. That'd be fun. Sometimes the thing keeping you stuck is not the heartbreak itself. It's the belief that you still need just one more answer. Humans hate uncertainty, like genuinely hate it. Like I can't handle it. Like I am shingles into uncertainty. Can't do it. Can't do it. I implode. It's terrible for me. Our brains are wired to search for meaning, patterns, explanations, especially after emotional pain. So when something ends without clarity, it can feel almost impossible to let go. Because your brain keeps trying to solve it. What did I miss? Can I fix this? Did I just imagine everything? One of the worst things in the world is when you have to question yourself because someone else doesn't give you the answers that you need, or actually shows up as who they are, even though you had them made up as someone else in your own brain. I search for closure in things that never have closure. You're not going to get closure from something or a situation that in reality was never what you thought it was anyway. The closure is the reality of it. The closure is what your friends say about it, the opinions of other people who are looking while you're still stuck in the crazy smoke, thinking it was great the entire time. Listen to your friends. Listen to the people who watched you, who saw it from the outside, who were not breathing in the crazy smoke. They're the ones that will tell you what it looks like and what the reality is. That's the closure you're going to get in some relationships. Sometimes you're not going to get the answers that you need because the answers that you need were made up in your head anyway. You want them to be or say things that they're never going to be or say. And so you're holding out, waiting for this major explanation. And the reality is all you want is to fix the old situation. You want the relationship back. You don't want to know why it ended. You want to know how you stop it from ending. Maybe that was just me. Maybe I'm talking about myself. But I think a lot of times in relationships, when we are desperate to understand why it happened, we don't do that anywhere else in the world. We don't do that. I was just talking papers fell. Did I search around to see where the wind came from and why that happened? No. You know why? Because it fell. It fell because it fell. Papers fall. Relationships end. We don't need explanations. We search out these things because what we really want to do is fix it and not lose the relationship. I think a lot of times, Kelley is you seek out closure because you don't want to end it. You feel like that one last conversation, you'll get that little piece. I'll make him miss me. I'll make him remember what's great about me. I'll make him regret changing his mind. I don't want closure. I want you to say you're sorry and to circle back and to fix this. That's what it was, at least for me. I think sometimes people really do need closure. I don't know you people. I never need closure. What I need is an explanation. I need you to make me feel better about it. I need not to blame myself. I need you to say it's your fault. Okay. I'm going to bring myself down and relax. Some people might need closure. I, in fact, do not. I need things to go right. I need never to have to worry. I don't want to have to wonder. If we have a fight, let's talk about it. If you want to end a relationship, you want to end a friendship, let's talk about it. Let's end it. Closure, up in the air. People who leave things up in the air are running from things. That's just all you need to hear about them. If someone doesn't respect you or your time enough to give you the closure when you're asking for it, see that as closure enough. They are telling you who they are. And if you don't believe them or you don't see them clearly, ask the people who see you from the outside. If your relationship is horrible and if this was a dysfunctional situation from the jump, your closest and dearest friends who have been dying to tell you, but they couldn't tell you because you stayed in it, the minute it ends, will be very happy to tell you how terrible the relationship was and that you don't need closure because it was never a real thing anyway. So you spend all your time trying to figure out if there were signs that you missed, if there are things you could have avoided, if there was some specific second that you could have worded something differently to have changed the outcome of what was always going to happen anyway. But yet we spent our time, our quiet time, full conversations with ourselves, rehashing conversations we had, changing the way we worded things that have already been said, wishing you can have a time machine to go back and say it differently, as if this 1 second is going to change the entire dynamics of a relationship that was never meant to be anyway. Somehow I have a lot to say about this topic. I've spent hours upon hours talking to myself, reliving conversations. I've texted myself full arguments, redoing a conversation, answering in the way I wished he would have answered, regretting things I said, playing it over, dreaming it, daydreaming. But I mean, I've manifested every replaying. Let me go back and fix it the second time, the next time we talk, and the next time he calls. The next time he calls, it's him again, it's me again, and we fall right back in to the pattern, and there's no closure, and there's no resolution, and there's no answer, and I don't have any more information the second time, or the third time, or any time I'm left without closure. I'm in the same position I was in the beginning, because what happens a lot of times is when someone does leave with unanswered questions with no finality, they plan on coming back. Someone who doesn't give you closure doesn't want to shut the door. And if you need them to shut the door, then your door's open. You've got to figure out, we've got to figure out how we get closure from ourselves, not waiting for someone else to hand it to us. Because if that happens, all we're doing is allowing the door to stay open for another conversation, because in reality, we're really not finished with the relationship. Or I wasn't. So, closure. What's it all about? How do you get it? Therapy. You get closure from therapy because you realize that at some point, it's all about what you actually need. No one's going to give it to you. No one's going to give you all the answers. You've got to really, when you're far enough out of the relationship, especially if you're heartbroken over it, you can't see it clearly when you're in it. You need to take a little breath out of it. And when you can step back and look and go, there is nothing this person's going to say that makes me feel any better about the ending. Because that's all we want. We want a Band-Aid on a gaping hole that needs stitches. It's never going to fix the problem. You want resolution, you want respect, you want to feel like you're heard. The person that doesn't give you closure is not going to give you any of those things. It's one big personality. It's like you're not going to, you know what I mean? That's all one chunk. It's like the same person who's going to validate you or explain things to you or give you that last final romantic goodbye is not the same person who doesn't give you closure. Like we got to, figure this out. This is a cycle. This is who these people are. If I'm mad, I give a full explanation about why I'm mad. I've ended friendships, I've ended relationships. I was very clear on the final note because that's just who I am. I'm not someone who leaves people guessing. There's a personality trait in people who allow people to sit without answers and know that you're stewing and know some of us, i.e. me, will spin out endlessly trying to figure out a way of making this work again to get what it is I need. Maybe if I just say this, I'll call and we can have a conversation. Maybe if I text, maybe if I send flowers, maybe if I send ice cream, maybe if I send pretzels. And by the way, all of this is something I've done. I don't do anymore. Sometimes. She lies, right on camera, she lies. I do sometimes, you know, when the closure is not happening, trying to seek out the closure. Okay, bring myself back to what I was talking about. Sometimes it's important that you let go of what you need from the other person and find it from yourself. If you really take an unbiased look at a situation, whether it be a relationship, a friendship, work colleague, closure, we need it in all relationships. I think the ending of relationships, I believe, no matter what that was for you, closure helps you tell the story in a better way, right? If you had closure from the worst relationship in your life, but this person actually decided to say, hey, I'm sorry, I did A, B, and C, D, but it's not going to work, and and you're done, it would be a way different story you tell than the same schmuck not calling, not giving you, not getting any answers to your questions leaves you, the story is worse. You want a happy ending. You have a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's how we are raised. That's what, from Bambi to Romeo and Juliet, everything is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think what happens to people, to me, is that when you live your life in stories and you believe in the whole beginning, middle, and end of things, when you don't get your end of things, and you put that on someone else, you lose your power, because then you're giving them the control of how you feel a lot. And believe me, the person who doesn't give you closure also plays you like a marionette when they get the chance. So you're just sitting around like this, waiting for the strings to get pulled, or closure. So the thing is, like, it's always an option. Do we ever really want closure, finished, done, kaputs, close the book? Because if we do it ourselves. So I think closure is an illusion. I think asking someone for closure is a bunch of BS, and what we really want is an open door for conversation. That's what I think. I think closure, when we're really done, and we all know it, when you're really done, you don't need it from anybody but yourself. You're like, that's a situation that is finalized. Nothing else is needed there. I don't know if that happens in love relationships and romantic relationships. I think it can happen in more less, that's the way I describe how I feel. Can't imagine why I'm single when that's how I describe love. So I just want to feel raw again. Well, that's probably why you're single, Kelley. Get that off don't put that on your hinge. I have a lot of feelings about this. I'm running all over the place. My point of the matter is, if you think you're going to get closure from somebody, you're probably not. Because people who are going to give you closure do it organically as a relationship is ending, as a situation is ending. Normal people who communicate and care about the person on the other end of the communication will allow closure, even if it's just to listen to you and validate your feelings. Closure enough. Explanations, all that would be fantastic. Owning their own behavior would be amazing, but let's not ask for miracles. Let's just get some closure, which just means acknowledging that the relationship is ending. Or does it? Or is that just my closure? It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff with this closure stuff. I feel like it's internal, like happiness. You know how they say you have to find the happiness on the inside? There's that little Winnie the Pooh thing. I don't know how it goes, but it's a little Winnie Pooh meme. Something like, I found happiness inside my belly or something. Well, honestly, I think a lot of people believe that closure is going to magically remove the pain. But most of the time, even when people do get the explanation, it still hurts. Because closure doesn't actually erase disappointment. It just temporarily satisfies your curiosity. And sometimes the answer that you're chasing doesn't even exist. Not everyone has the emotional maturity to explain themselves. Not everyone fully understands their behavior. Some people avoid honesty because honesty makes them uncomfortable, which means that sometimes there's no satisfying explanation waiting for you. Sometimes you have to sit in the what if of it. What if? What if I said this? What if he didn't do that? What if? And it doesn't change anything. But you also have to find strength in letting go of what you want from them. Part of this closure, resolution, and ending, you have to sometimes go, it's never going to go the way I want it to go. The beginning of it didn't go the way I wanted to go. The middle of it didn't. And the story ending has to be written by you because you're not going to get what you need. Sometimes it's really important that you just take a second and say, I did everything I can. This is not my fault. Some people are just not emotionally available for the closing conversation that you require to be able to function like a normal human being in your life. I take this topic very seriously because I think that when you're left without answers, when it's out of the clear blue, when you get hit it's like, wait, what? You're doing what now? What happened? When you don't even see it coming, because sometimes you don't see it coming. But you saw it coming, the friends outside of the crazy smoke, they all saw it. What do you mean he did that? He always does that. But I think this time it was, no, but that's what happened last time that he did. But no, this time he said, oh, but he said, what'd he do? What did he do? Watch the actions, words. That's what we look for. By the way, that's what we're looking for anyway, right? More words. When everything was words anyway, the words don't matter anymore. All that matters are the actions. And if people are not showing you that they care about giving you closure, trust them and you give yourself closure. Who wants people like that around anyway? It's what people do. It's what people do. It sounds so silly. It's such an old cliche, but it's true. It's an old cliche. Don't listen to their words, watch their actions. And if you really take off the crazy smoke eyeglasses that everything in the world is beautiful and bright and shiny because you're in love, see beyond that to the reality of the dark mess you're actually in, and you will need closure. You have it by every shitty move they made before you got here. Every unanswered text, every time they didn't call, blah, blah, blah. You line them up, whatever happened in your relationships. But you know, the people who don't give you closure were probably crappy along the way. It's not about the words, and that's what we're looking for. Closure usually comes in words. If you watch what they're doing, you're going to get your closure anyway. The phone doesn't ring, they don't call, they don't respond, there's your closure. You're not enough. You're not enough to them. You're not enough to them. I think that's the hard part. It was a hard part for me. How am I not enough? And then you start self-examining and self-critiquing and thinking you did something wrong. And one of the greatest parts of getting closure for yourself is realizing their loss. You did nothing wrong. There are people who would love to spend time with you. There are people who answer your text the minute you text them. There are people waiting for you, hoping that you text. And you're wasting your time on this fool who's not responding, who's sitting, acting like you're an option. No. Find your closure in their actions. See what they do. And that's across the board. Friends, family, work colleagues, anyone that you have a relationship with that you feel the ending wasn't satisfiable. Look back at the relationship. I promise you that along the way, their behavior gave you the closure that you need if you give yourself a minute and the grace to go through the pain of losing people. Because if you're not a rock, losing people hurts. If you're emotionally available, endings hurt. But when someone makes it hurt more purposely by dangling closure in front of you, knowing that that last conversation is what you think you need, but they know it's hurting you not to give it to you, oof. Take a step back. At some point, you're going to see them for what they are, and they're rotting from the inside. Some people disguise their emotional attachment by being hopeful. You know, if we just have this one more conversation, I'll be fine. No, we just want to say one more thing. Oh, if I just get to tell them A, B, and C, everything's going to be great. You're pretending as if you have the hope of this happy ending, when in reality, you're just emotionally attached to this person and if they're going to call and how it's going to affect you when and if they do. When someone's phone call or lack thereof, or text message or lack thereof, or existence in your life or lack thereof has the ability to sway your moods and how you feel about yourself, this is an unhealthy relationship. And closure is being disguised as desperation. It's like you just desperately want that one last phone call, so you disguise it in the pretty dress of being healthy and wanting closure. Put polka dots on it and dress it up. No. You're emotionally connected to this person. You're acting like you're going to have some big adult ending to things and that you're not affected by it in this one last conversation. Meanwhile, you're dying on the inside by someone else has control of your happiness or your sadness or your good days or your bad days. And no closure, no phone call, no last conversation, no explanation for why things went nosedive into a cliff, why everything blew up. No one conversation is going to change heartbreak. It's never going to fix the loss of that person. And if you're the person needing the closure, you're probably the person who's heartbroken over the end. And no one conversation is ever going to make that better. You're never going to get a Hallmark card ending that, oh, he just said, and so I feel so much better that we're not getting married and having babies. No. There's no one answer to what you thought was going to be happily ever after, and then it's just the end. You know? That one part, but it said happily ever after. No, we don't get that. We just get the end. We don't get that movie. We get the other movie. It was what we expected. The amount of hours that you spend trying to figure out why you're not getting closure, and all of the conversations you rehab with yourself, and the I don't know what everyone else does, but I do many voice notes to myself. I will write myself text messages. I will reread old text messages. I will go back and go, God, why did I say that if I had just said? And mind you, this is not in every relationship that I have. It's very specific to one specific situation. but it's a very important situation. Don't think I'm not bananas. I don't do this over everybody. It's not like if my friends don't call me, I'm not spinning out in the shower. But one specific situation definitely had me and still has me spinning out. When you do those spin outs, those emotional spin outs, what if, how come, if I only would have said, did he really mean? I didn't mean that. Over explaining. By the way, explaining in general. We don't do that in healthy relationships. You make a mistake with a friend and you say, oh, I didn't mean that, point blank, done. You make a mistake with someone who is emotionally unavailable and who's probably going to ghost, and you'll be like, I didn't mean that because I was feeling this way, my tooth was hurting, and then I did that, and you send 5,000 reasons why you did it. They don't care why you did it. Doesn't matter to them. Everything matters more to you than them. There's the rub. Everything matters more to you than them. So the closure that you're seeking and these hours that you spend rehashing conversations, or the stalking, the secret stalking on social media, where you're looking for them in every picture and what their friends are doing, what their friends are saying, what people are saying about you, or did they look happy, or who's this person? Then you find yourself in a hole, in a black hole, and somehow you're in like some 18-year-old TikTok, and it happens. Or if it's just me, it's not just me. We go into these nosedives to try to figure out what these people are doing on social media. And then sometimes we find out, and then we just dive in that hole. You find yourself hours in, 35 people detached from the person you were originally looking at, and then you see the sneaker in the background, and you're like, that's his foot. Or is that just me? Emotionally diving into social media. I remember my on again, off again, very specifically had a flip phone. Now imagine 2026. This is 2024, so it was still a very strange situation to have a flip phone. But man, how many tables I searched for that phone and how many times I found it. There's his phone, and he said he was staying home, and I would see the phone. I would always find the phone. Take the phone off the table if you're going to be sneaky. Take the phone off the table, because now I know you at Indochine. Told me you're staying home. Point to Indochine, it's a great restaurant. I have found myself in rabbit holes that I've ended up in some young Polish girls. I'm looking at pages that are not even in English anymore. I don't know what they're saying. I'm copying and pasting ChatGPT. What does this say? Maybe my therapy is not working as well as I thought it was, because this is still happening. This isn't old school. Let's say I'm saying in the past, like yesterday afternoon, I found myself in a small island in Thailand looking at some 12-year-old. She wasn't 12, 18. Small island in Thailand looking at a 21-year-old, somehow connected to the on again, off again through 17 other people that she was at a party once somewhere. Because I didn't get the closure conversation. You think that's the reason why? If he would have called, if we would have had that one last talk. Not true. We need closure because we need it to make sense. We need to close everything in a nice bow and put it away. And not everything is meant to be put away in a nice bow. You can't tie up sand, can you? No. Let it drip through your hands. That was a great analogy. Look at me. I'm teaching you things. I'm teaching you things. No, seriously, not everything's meant to be bowed and cleaned up and finished in a box. Some things are meant to be messy. Some endings are meant to be messy. They make for better stories. They definitely make for better podcasts. Not everything is supposed to be picture perfect and end the best way and have a great story. And if people want to have a better story, they should act better. Because when I tell the story about certain people, I say it was a shitty situation because it ended poorly. Had it ended well, I might have a better story. It's like a bad dinner, right? If you have a really bad dinner, but you have a great espresso at the end of it, you don't complain. I probably would complain. They say if you tie up a dinner with a good dessert, you don't get mad. I don't know. All I know is that closure is really difficult to get when you're not getting it. Closure is a big one for me. Clearly, I'm having a lot of feelings about it. I don't know if I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to have the whole thing, like I said before, neatly tied up. And that to me is what makes me crazy. I have to understand the where, what, why, and how. And sometimes it just is. It just is. For some people, closure is just a socially acceptable way to maintain contact, because letting go completely feels way scarier than holding on to the confusion. Sometimes we get so comfortable in the discomfort of something that we hold on to it and extend this closure far beyond its expiration date because we're so afraid of letting go of the craziness that we're used to. You find so much comfort in the discomfort because it's what's familiar to you. And if you do ever have that final closure conversation, the one where you get all the answers that you need, the one that never actually happens, they're all seeking the same thing. But if that was to have happened and you have had it, good for you. But it's then over, then it's done. Then what? Then all those conversations that you have in the shower are really only going to be those conversations that you have in the shower. At least when you keep the conversation open and you don't have your closure, you could at some point possibly, there's still a possibility of having communication. I think that we kid ourselves that we want this closure. I think most of the time it is a disguise on the need to continuously remain somehow attached to this person who has such an emotional control over us, and it makes us seem healthier and bigger to maintain communication separate from the relationship part of it, not hold them accountable for their behavior, and never get the closure that we really need, because in reality the closure is a closing of a book that we're not finished reading yet. So let's just stop lying. We don't want closure. We want things to be better. You know, when things are better, when you're with people who treat you better. So is it closure that you really need, or you just need to move on to someone who's nice, or be alone? You know what's better? Being alone without anybody who you feel emotionally disconnected and disheveled and eaten up by. Like a little Pac-Man. Getting eaten up, jump, 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 jump. Like I'm the ghost. And the emotional Pac-Man person eats me up. If you don't know the game, meow, 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 he eats the ghosts. And that's what happens, I think, if you leave yourself waiting for someone else to give you the thing that you need to give yourself, which is the moment when you realize this is done. There's no more coming from this positive in my life. There's no more that I could give positively. Because I think it has to go both ways. I think when you get to a place where you really know that something's over, and so you're just waiting for that last moment conversation, you're giving so much to try to get it there that you're not being true to yourself anymore either. You know, because when you want closure, you can't really be angry. You got to put the anger aside. So you have to ask yourself, are you really ready not to be mad anymore? Have they earned your forgiveness? Have you really worked through all the things that hurt? And you have to do that for yourself, not for them, but you have to do that for yourself. Get yourself healthy, get yourself to a space where you're no longer their opinion of you, their treatment of you. I can't possibly be his lack of response. I can't be that. That's his thing. So when you get to a space where you know you are more than the least of how they treat you, you are more than the least of how they treat you, I don't think you need closure. I think that's the closure. I'm better than the situation. Nothing they can say or do is going to fix all of the things that have been said and done already. And it's in my best interest to get onto Facebook, to get onto Instagram a little less, do a little less snooping around, have a few less conversations with myself in the shower, you know, text myself a little bit less, or more positive affirmations than I do actual conversations with him. It comes down to you finding it inside yourself. And if closure comes from them and you're not ready for it, is it closure? You know, what if they're done and you're not? It's a big one, this whole closure thing. The longer you wait for someone to give you peace, the longer your healing depends on them. And that is exhausting. Eventually you realize that closure is less about getting answers and more about accepting the reality. This is the part that nobody likes. Real closure usually looks boring. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's not a long-awaited speech in the rain. It's acceptance. Acceptance that the relationship ended, the friendship changed, the situation hurt you. The explanation may never make sense, but life still has to move forward. When you finally realize that there is really no one answer that's going to make everything better, when you realize that the sum of the relationship, you have to find the best of it, you have to walk away with your head up, you have to realize that there's going to be no closure from them, there's going to be closure from yourself. You stop romanticizing the moments that weren't so great. You take from it what you really should, the positives, when you can go, wow, it didn't work, but it was great for A, B, and C. Those are the moments when you know that you didn't need anything from them. These are all the things that you had to get from the inside. When you stop reacting to situations and you take a moment to respond to a situation, even if that situation is the lack of communication, you give yourself just a second to be like, okay, what does this mean about me? I think that the thing that happens when you don't get what you want from somebody else is you start thinking it's something you did, or you start self sabotaging, you know, beating yourself up about things that you think you did wrong. You cannot do the right thing with the wrong person, and you can't do the wrong thing with the right one. Someone told me that years ago, and anytime I think, I wish I had a I have myself spinning out. No, it's the facts. If this was right, it was going to be right. If this is wrong, it's going to be wrong. It's always going to be wrong until it's the final right person. And when you get there, I think you probably know it. It shouldn't be this big a struggle. And that's in every proper job, right friend group, and relationships. If it's a struggle, if it's painful, it's not right. Anything good is worth working for. A great job, a great friendship, a great relationship. Anyone says it shouldn't be work is lazy. Great relationships, great things take work. Pain, though, emotional pain, questioning yourself, no ending, no respect to the finality of something, no. It's not about hard work. That's about disrespect and lack of knowing what you're worth and what you should and shouldn't put up with. If you allow someone to treat you in a way that you would not allow them to treat someone that you love, put someone else in the story. How would you feel if? I've had people say to me, well, what if that was your niece? Or what if, and I'm saying, well, I would say blah, blah, blah. But if you really do treat yourself the way you treat the people that you love and expect people to treat you the way you would expect them to treat the people you love, not necessarily the way you treat them. I've said this before, you can't give and expect to have the same thing in return. But the one line through all relationships has to be respect. Has to be. No matter what it is, it's respect. And if that one line of respect is not there, which you'll recognize when you're fighting, when you have a disagreement, how those arguments go. Do you get resolution? Do you get respect? Do you get heard? Do you get validation? Across the board in every relationship. I think it's a bigger one, when it's your emotional love life. I think a forever and ever relationship probably clearly has a bigger effect. Though some friendships can be just as painful when lost. But when you're in this love story, and all of a sudden you're like, where did my love story go? Well, it was in every little lead up to where you are right now. Where was the love story? You were right in the love story. You were right in the love story, and you were living in Scarface. What are you talking about? Look at the reality of the situation. I'm making a lot of movie references today, people. Constantly reliving the situation doesn't actually help you heal. It causes you to stay stuck in the moment that you think you need to change. And honestly, some people spend years emotionally waiting in rooms they should have left a long time ago. They're waiting for validation. They're waiting for accountability. They're waiting for someone to explain to them why they hurt them. Meanwhile, life is still happening, and they're going about every day like it never happened, and you are just an afterthought they don't even stop and think about when you're home spinning out, writing text messages, looking at yourself in the mirror, going through the text messages, going onto Instagram, doing all the things, and they're out having a drink with their friends with their phone on the table, and you're going to see it next week. Meanwhile, that's what's happening. Their lives are happening. You're home, bitter, spinning out. Anyway, how do you actually let go when your brain still wants the answers? Moving on is less about forgetting and more about stopping the negotiation. When people are hurt, they mentally negotiate constantly. Maybe if I understood it differently. Maybe if they understood my perspective. Maybe if I reached out one more time. Healing usually begins when you stop trying to change the ending. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is just to accept. This happened, it hurt, I may never fully understand it, but I'm gonna move forward anyway. When I got to a space and I recognized that I was actually spending exorbitant amounts of time trying to replay and change things that have already happened, or try to dictate and change what's currently happening in someone else's behavior. When I finally got to a place where I was like, what do I want? What is it that I really, truly want? What I want is peace. Am I really getting peace from anybody else? Am I really going to get one word, one thing? Is there going to be a gesture, a text, a conversation that's ever going to make me feel okay about the situation? No. I was heartbroken. I was caught from left field. I didn't see things changing. I didn't see it ending. I didn't see it. This is not how my story was ending. This is not my movie. But when I came to the realization that this is just a part of it, this is one section of my life that I do actually have control over. And the only part I can control is how I handle the way this ends. And I got to do it with grace. I got to give myself respect. I got to cry when I want to cry. Don't end up in some 22-year-old's Instagram. Give yourself some respect. Step away. Take the minute. And I did. And I took enough space to breathe and to say, what did I really want? What could he have done? And the reality is I had a great relationship. It ended. It didn't end the way I wanted it to end. And so be it. That doesn't have to affect tomorrow. It is now. I have to be in the now of things. And the now of things, everything is great. So I needed to do a lot of text message, wow, did I do a lot of like love songs and sad movies, and I did all the cry it out stuff, but I got to a space where I was like, okay, what really do I need? And what I need is to have some peace in my life, and who's going to give me that? And that's going to be me. And the good news about my situation after all of this is that we actually are in a good space. And closure didn't happen. I closed one book, and now we have a whole different book. We have a whole different book now. But the old book, the one I wanted him to finish with a beautiful happily ever after, as I said, that ending I had to rewrite and just shut it. And so now there's a whole new chapter for us, and things are fine. But it's not that love affair. It's not that thing. It's not that thing that I held on to, that the closure that I needed that I never got, I had to give myself. And with a long time in between the old and the new. I find for me, closure is self-created. It's choosing to stop opening the wound. That's real emotional maturity. Not because it feels good, but because it gives your life back to you. Some endings stay messy, and some questions stay unanswered. And maybe it's better that way. Some people never become who you hoped they'd be, but your life still deserves to continue beyond that. The moral of the story is, something that used to occupy your thoughts nonstop becomes something that you hardly ever think about at all. Remember this. Closure isn't always something that you receive. A lot of the time, it's just something that you decide. And waiting for the perfect explanation can quietly keep you trapped in a relationship that's already ended. Because sometimes there's no final speech, no perfect apology, and no satisfying reason. Sometimes people just disappoint you. Sometimes relationships end unfairly. And sometimes life feels unresolved. But unresolved does not mean unhealable. Stop waiting for one more conversation to finally give you permission to move on. Give yourself that permission instead. And maybe part of adulthood is realizing that peace hardly ever comes from getting all the answers. It comes from learning how to live without needing every single one. So send this to the friend who is still waiting for that one last conversation before they can move on. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, rate us 5 stars, and follow us wherever you watch your podcast. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for showing up for another episode of Still Can't Cook. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcasts, on YouTube or any other podcast provider. And if you're on Instagram or TikTok, please follow us at Still Can't Cook. Love to have you guys back every week. So happy that you joined us, and look forward to seeing you next week.